Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be flushing out this Navian 180A2 tankless water heater. Now this flushing technique is pretty much the same for any tankless heater that you run into, so this video is going to be applicable for pretty much any tankless water heater flush that you're going to come by, especially the Navian, because that's what we're doing it on. So the very first thing that we want to look at here is make sure that our heater has got what's called isolation valves. Now if you see this brass piece right here, this whole fitting right here, this and this, those are our isolation valves. Now what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to hook a water hose connection to here and a water hose connection to here. And that's going to allow us to hook a pump to that water hose, run water through the heat exchangers mixed with a cleaning solution that will clean out the heat exchangers in this unit, remove any hard water deposits that we might have building up inside there. So the first thing we're going to do when we come up to a tankless water heater that we're going to flush after we've established that it has isolation valves and everything's good to go is we're going to get this heater cranked up as high as we can get it. All right, heating wise. Now the reason we do this is so that both the primary and the secondary heat exchangers are both working. With these tankless heaters, they don't always work at maximum capacity. So if you're just using one faucet, it'll only run one heat exchanger. But if you run a lot of water at once, this unit will run at max capacity. So what we want to do is we want to get this water heater running at max capacity and then unplug it. What that does is it forces the solenoid valves inside the heater all to be open. That allows us to get that cleaning solution inside of all the heat exchangers, all the parts inside that heater, so we can get it real nice and clean. So what I like to do to get these heaters fired up as high as they'll go is I like to take the temperature and pressure relief valve here and open it up full blast, if you're able to. If it's going outside or to a floor drain where you're able to get it blowing full blast, that's the best way to do it. So once this heater gets going, we're running about 4 gallons per minute right now, about 4.2. So we're gonna let this thing crank up and run as high as it'll go, all right? And then we're gonna unplug it. All right, so what that did, now all the solenoid valves inside that heater are open and we can clean this thing out. So I'm using the Haymaker tankless water heater descaler kit. Now this kit's got pretty much everything you need in it. It's made by Hercules. All right, it's got the cleaning solution. It's called Haymaker. We're gonna use this whole thing, just pour the whole thing in there to clean the heater. All right, it comes with the pump. This pump's gonna go into the cold side of the heater to force the solution into it. And it also comes with 2 water hoses, one for each side. So what I'm gonna go ahead and hook these water hoses up. But before we do that, make sure you turn your water off to your heater. So water's off there, water's off there. I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew these caps going to the isolation valves. All right. You might get a little bit of water out of these, so as always, just make sure you're not gonna get any water on anything that's not supposed to have water on it. So we'll hook water hoses up here. These on are nice and snug. Go ahead and put that into the bucket. Now I'm going to hook up the cold side here, same way as the hot. Take the cap off and screw your water hose onto it. Screw our water hose on there. These do have gaskets in there, so you don't have to get them terribly tight. Hand tight should be sufficient. All right, now we're going to go ahead and hook our water hose to our water pump. So let's go ahead and connect that up. All right, so the water hose is hooked up to the pump. Now we're gonna take our pump and put it in our bucket. I'm gonna take the Haymaker solution and I'm gonna pour the whole thing in this bucket. So let's go ahead and pour that in there. So now we have our Haymaker in the bucket. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and open up these isolation valves going to the water hoses. Valves going to the water hoses we're gonna open. And then I'm just gonna open the cold side here just a little bit so that I can add some water into our bucket here. We wanna get some water in our bucket. I like to fill it to about right there. That's plenty enough solution. All right, so now we have our hoses hooked up to the heater. Both heat exchangers are open, ready to be flushed. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug this pump in. And as soon as you plug this pump in, it's gonna start pumping. All right, so now we're pumping. As you can see, got water coming out of there. Now we're gonna let this sit there and run through that heater for about 45 minutes, just to make sure that it gets nice and gets everything out of that heater. So we're gonna sit there and let that run for a good 45 minutes, all right? Just to make sure that everything gets nice and clean in that heater. And then after we get done, I'll show you what it looks like. Hopefully we should get some hard water deposits out of this heater. Now this solution, I will go ahead and say most of the solution is mostly just vinegar. You can use just vinegar to clean these heaters, honestly. But the Haymaker solution is the best way to go. It all comes in one kit. You can get these Haymaker kits at plumbing supply houses. I got this one at Wind Supply, our local Wind Nelson here. Most of your plumbing supply houses will have them, but really need them if you're going to be flushing these tankless heaters. Also it comes with a tag that you can attach to the heater here, where you can write down when you serviced the heater. That way the customer knows, oh, it's been 6 months since I serviced it, I should probably go ahead and get it flushed. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about how long between flushes for these tankless heaters. Now it's going to vary greatly depending on how hard your water is, whether you have a water softener or not, and how much water you use. But a good rule of thumb around here, we have very hard water here. So a good rule of thumb for a tankless heater here is going to be a flushing every 6 months. Some places you can do a flushing every year. Some people do a flushing every year, some people do a flushing 6 months. But I would recommend, if you have very hard water, to do a flushing every 6 months to keep that heater up and to keep it from malfunctioning and running at peak performance. If you have a water softener, then you can skip this flushing step, because that should take care of all the hardness in your water anyway. So it's a good idea if you have a tankless heater and you know that you have hard water, you should probably go ahead and look into installing a water softener to protect that heater. So we're gonna go ahead and let this cycle for 45 minutes, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. So our solution has been pumping through this heater for about 45 minutes or so now. It's kind of hard to see, but there are some granules in the bottom. This heater here wasn't terribly bad. I'm using it for demonstration purposes for this video, but if you went to a heater that was it's been a year since they flushed it out and they had very hard water, the bottom of the bucket would be pretty full of sediment. So now that we're done, it's been 45 minutes, we're done flushing our heaters. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and shut the valves off. Now these valves that I'm shutting off now these are the valves that go to our water hoses. So I'm shutting those off, both of them. All right, so now that I've got both those shut off, I'm gonna go ahead and flush the remaining solution out of this heater. Typically, now there's a couple ways you can do this. The way I'm gonna do it right now is I'm gonna leave the hot side valve off. I'm gonna turn the cold side valve on. And I'm gonna flush this one through the temperature or the pressure relief valve here. So, but typically another way you could do it is dump this bucket out, dump your solution out of the bucket, leave the hot hose attached, turn the hot side hose, the hot side valve go into the hose, turn it on, and then you can allow the water that still has the solution in it to go into the bucket and flush all the solution out of it that way. But for the purposes of the video, I'm gonna flush it using the pressure relief valve because ours is ran out, so it's not gonna get, you know, anything wet. It's not supposed to be wet. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that up and I'm just gonna let it run through there for a few minutes just to make sure it's nice and good. I mean, this solution, if there is still some solution in there, it's not gonna hurt you. It's designed to be safe, potable water safe. So it's not the end of the world if you don't get it all out. I just like to get it all out just so that there's not a vinegar smell in their water. So now that I've flushed that out, I just flushed it for a few minutes, let it run through there. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and turn the hot side valve back on here to the heater, disconnect my hoses. And this water heater flush is complete now. Put everything back up. Make sure both of our valves going to the water hoses are off, obviously. Let's go ahead and we'll put our caps back on. And this water heater is good to go for another 6 months until it's ready to be flushed again. We'll go ahead and denote it on our service tag, the date that it was flushed, so that the customer knows the date as well. And make sure that the customer knows about flushing these heaters every 6 months to a year as well. It's very important. These heaters are expensive, and it's just gonna save you money in the long run to flush these units. So that's how you flush the tankless heater. As always, if you liked the video, go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel. We're gonna be posting some more videos on plumbing related content and some more training videos. Thank you for watching.